In Jesus. There's power in the name of
large Christian communities that have a sincere devotion to God. We know Ukraine have a tremendous Christian community, but yet they are undergoing the greatest threat to their liberties in the last 30 years. Praying people, churches that have been established, once they was delivered or separated from the Soviet Empire, now they have planted churches and ministries are flourishing. All of a sudden this assault come on, but still God made promises to them. Amen. God made promises to them, and we have to believe that He is a God that made promises regardless of our circumstances, regardless of our situations and the conditions that we're going through. Even when you are facing threats to your family, to your relationship, God still made promises to you. Your job, that there may be some kind of question about the stability of your job and your financial or economic future, but God still made promises to you. You may be concerned about your health, and the news that you get from your doctor may not be something that will give you means to rejoice, but God yet made promises to you. Amen. Your children may have just turned away from your values and right living, and they may have now strayed in the world and following a different course and a different lifestyle. They may be actually living in a criminal element and lifestyle, but yet God made promises to you. Yes, He did. So God made promises despite the opposition that we are facing and the threats that are confronting us. God yet made promises to us. So don't look at your situation and think that God has forgotten about you. Don't analyze the dilemmas that stand in your way, the mountain of problems that may have not only knocked on your door, but have moved into your house. God yet has made promises, and He keeps His promises. Today we're going to look at the promises of God rewards faith. And it is important that we understand this because otherwise we'll believe that once God makes a promise, it's instant, it's automatic, and we can just sit back and just reap the benefits of it. But no, He rewards faith, the promise of God. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. It reads like this: but without faith, it is impossible to please God. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. So the focus here is pleasing God. He puts the condition there. This is the requirement, the prerequisite to receiving the rewards from God. The prerequisite is to have faith. Amen. He said it's impossible. Not that it is questionable, not that it is suspect, or that it is negotiable. Amen. He said no, it's impossible. That without that element, without faith being a part of your approach to God, it's impossible to please Him. So there are people that say they're praying to God, yet they have no faith in God. He said, you're not pleasing me. You can say all the words that you want. It's not pleasing me because there's no faith attached to it. You're not coming in faith. You're not coming believing. You're not coming expecting. You're not coming looking for me. There are many things that we do that we say is in the name of God, in the name of Jesus, in the name of the Lord. However, there is no faith attached to it at all. And therefore, it does not please God. Our actions, our behavior, there has to be this ingredient that's incorporated into the process that we use, so we are making our appeal unto God. There is something about baking a cake. My first wife, she was interesting. She was a great cook. But one of the things that she had was she also wanted to bake. I come from a family of cake bakers. Almost everybody in my family was able to make cakes from scratch. I'm not talking about Duncan Hines. I'm not talking about Sara Lee. I'm not talking about Intamins. I am talking about real cakes where you take the butter and the sour cream and the sugar and the vanilla and the flour and you mix it all together with other ingredients so that, and you put it in the oven and you wait and so that's the way they did it. And so what she did, my children's mother, she wanted to impress me by baking a cake. And so when we were dating, I went over to her house. We were with her mother and her brothers and whatever. And there was a cake sitting there on the table. And I sat on one side of the table. The cake is on the table. And her brother, she had 3 brothers. And they were, big, strapping guys. They were teenagers, in their upper teens. And they sitting there watching me as the cake is sitting there. And so she cuts a slice of cake for me. And I take a bite of the cake. And while her back is turned, she leaves the room for a minute. Her brothers are watching me. I rush to the garbage can and I spit out the cake. And they just bust out laughing. So she comes back into the room and she sees that my plate is empty. She said, "You want another slice?" I said, No, baby, no. I said, no, I love you. But she had wanted to impress me because of my family's tradition of making cakes. And there's always a cake around the house that my mother or one of my sisters or my aunts had made. And so she wanted to demonstrate her ability to bake a cake. Yes. I married her anyway. But what I found out later on when she got the recipes from my aunt. She said, "Listen, I want to make a cake for me, not to be married." Got the recipes, and it just never turned out right. And she kept wondering why her cakes didn't come out right. And what was the problem was, when she was cooking, whatever she cooked, whether it was red rice, whether it was some kind of other meat or stew or other thing, she was able to somehow adjust the ingredients so that she could make it her own. So she was able to add some things or take out some other things to make that dish unique for her. And so what she did, she tried to take the instructions and the ingredients that my aunt had gave her for making a cake, and she wanted to alter the ingredients. She wanted to change the manner in which they had put together, and she wanted to bake it. You cannot do the same thing when you're baking as you can when you're cooking. There has to be, if you want to have a certain outcome, certain ingredients have to be there in that cake. The same thing when we are approaching God in prayer. approaching God, making our petitions and soliciting Him for help and support, seeking to have the promises of God being realized and poured out into our life. Faith is essential.
Amen.
So we have to understand, there's three aspects we have to understand when it comes to this. First of all, people of faith please God.
Amen.
That when we read this scripture, it's impossible. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. All of a sudden now, we want to become people of faith because we want to please God. So people of faith please God. Then people of faith focuses on God. And then people of faith pursue God. These are the three dynamics and qualities of people of faith. And you will be able to identify whether you are a person of faith or not. It's possible to live in a state of delusion where you believe in something that is totally not reality. There's a song that I like. I love this song, and I've loved it for years, for decades, from the late 1960s, early 1970s, by the Temptations. The song is "It Was Just My Imagination." And I sang that song for decades. Just my imagination. Every time I would hear it, I would just get into the flow of it. Just my imagination. And it's just a song about a man that sees this woman and he have this idea of a relationship with her. She makes such an impression upon him that he have this expectation and this idea that they are involved and engaged in an intimate, loving, dynamic relationship. But when he comes to the chorus, it was just my imagination running away with me. And there are people that believe and think that they are people of faith, but it's just their imagination running away with them. Heaven's out there, I'm a person of faith. I believe God. I trust God. I put my confidence in God. I know God is going to do this. The word says, name it and claim it. I could just do this. And it's just your imagination running away with you. Here's how you could tell when something is real and when it's not. First of all, people of faith please God. And this is why. Our faith acknowledges the importance of our relationship with God. In Mark chapter 8, verse 34 through 37. And I'm here so that you don't live in a state of delusion. You're not in a state of denial. I want us to have a firm understanding what real faith is. Not imitation faith, not wishy-washy faith, not unsubstantiated faith, or real faith. Whenever if you are in a relationship, you're going to really know the status of that relationship. Particularly, it's a relationship where your trust is required. Your ability to put your life in the hands of someone else. You are opening and exposing your deep feelings and emotions. You're making yourself vulnerable to someone. You want to make sure that there is substance in that relationship. Mark chapter 8, verse 34 through 37, it says, "And when he had called unto him with his disciples also, he said unto them, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross and follow me. For whosoever shall save his life shall lose it. But whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" Are you really a person of faith? Jesus here lays out the standard, the requirement for being in a relationship with him. He said, first of all, you got to deny yourself. Then you got to take up your cross and follow him. And I must say that everybody's not willing to do that. It's just their imagination running away with them. As I mentioned earlier about the people of Ukraine, they are showing and demonstrating that they want freedom. That they do not want to be under the oppressive regime of the Russians. And so they put their faith in actions facing tanks and bombs and missiles and jets, all kinds of things, bombarding and destroying, laying bare their cities, because it's not imagination. It's real. And you will find out if your faith is real if you are willing to deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow Jesus. Amen. People of faith do that. Faith is the gauge that measures our relationship with God. Yes, it can be measured. It is possible for there to be a way to identify the level of faith you have in God. Because it's a gauge. It reveals. Driving down the street every now and then, I have to take a look at my gas tank to measure that there is gas in the car to get me to my destination. Faith is that gauge. And so when we are unwilling to deny ourselves, no, I gotta have things my way. Things must work out the way I planned. I cannot be inconvenienced by things going awry. When you have faith, it's God's plan. Amen. When you have faith, you trust in God to work and guide and direct your situation. You're not quick to jump out of a situation when you realize that God has made the promise. See, here's one of the things, that sometimes the promises that God has made for us, there is a requirement for us to maybe set aside ourselves and to put Jesus' plans and purpose in priority. And when that don't seem to be looking good and don't look favorable to us, your faith will expose itself. Whether you believe God or not, whether you have a real commitment and relationship with him or not. So faith is the gauge that measures our relation with God. Faith is the bond that binds us in relation with God. And it's important for us to understand that, because if we want to please God, there can be nothing that separates us We can't allow things that the enemy do and what people do to be the cause of us, just turn our back on God. It's just amazing how people will turn their back on God and say, listen, I don't want no part of God anymore because somebody done hurt my feelings. They didn't treat me right. And instead of identifying the problem is with a person, just because someone said that they are a saint and they're a believer in God, and they mistreat you, abuse you, that doesn't justify you saying, God, I blame you for how they're treating me. No. I love God. Yeah. In your family, when you're married, sometimes the person you marry, you have to be very careful because your family may not like you. Now, your spouse may like you, but your family may not like you. And so you have to be careful that you don't turn against your spouse because their family don't like you. And people have done that, getting upset with their spouse because the family don't like them. And that's what we do. Get upset with God because people who say that they belong to God don't like us. Or they're hypocrites. No, your faith shall cause you to hold tighter to God. When you are under the assault of others, your relationship is strengthened because of the bond of faith. Then faith is the fuel that gives life in our relationship with God. Faith is the fuel. If you have no faith, that's why your spiritual life is dead. That's why you are bored. That's why people find themselves distracted, because that faith that should be there that connects us with God, it does not exist. It's just our imagination running away with God. Oh, I got faith in God. I got faith in my relationship with God, but as soon as something happened, oh, God done did this to me. God, and we blame God. Faith is the fuel that gives life to our relationship with God. And I'm going to tell you, it makes you feel the joy. It fills you with peace. It fills you with the love and the blessing of God. Because when you are under attack and the enemy, he wants to nullify, he wants to extinguish our faith. And so therefore, because he realized that he could cause us to deny God, to deny our commitment with God, or believe in false, illusionary, empty faith. He knows he has us. Can't please God. You can't please God. I don't care how many people in this world you please, but if you have no faith, you can't please God. Our faith. Our faith is faith that trusts God's plan for our life. Our faith trusts God's plans for our life. Yes. I'm a person that I like control. Why are you laughing? I like to be in control. I'm not the only one. All of us. Yeah. All of us want control. I mean, understand, we want control. We get in the car, me and my wife, we get in the car. She got her station that she wanted to listen to. I got my station I want to listen to. And so we resolve, whoever driving, that's the station that we listen to. What control? Yeah. But faith trusts God's plan for our life. It means that you're willing to release control in your life. So if you have to schedule and strategize every detail of your life, and if anything is contrary to your plan and purpose, you scrap it. Even even though God may be the one that's trying to get you to change. In Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11, it says this. Jeremiah 29, verse 11, it says this. And I will be reading from the God's Word translation of the Bible. He says, I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. They are plans for peace and not despair or disaster. Plans to give you a future filled with hope. So that's God's plan for your life. His plan for your life. Now, the reason why he gives this statement is because the people he's talking to are in a situation that it looks like things are not going to look good for them. They've been invaded by another nation. They've been taken captive into a foreign land. They've lost their property. They've lost their liberty. They lost their freedom. But God said, I know my plans I have for you. And then some of us, we have lost control of our life. We lost the ability to make decisions that could determine the course of actions that we want to take. We lost those things, maybe because we lost our job and therefore our financial resources are limited. Maybe our health has gone through a crisis and no longer move about like we used to. It could be our relationships is in jeopardy and suffering some kind of dilemma and we no longer interact the way we formerly did. Maybe there's some plans that we want to have implemented. But yet, there's been opposition. There's been stopping. There's been interfering. There's been blocking us moving forward. But God says, I know my plans for you. Despite every mountain that stands in your way. It doesn't matter the amount of the army, that the enemy may bring against you. It doesn't matter the threats, the attacks. God says, I know my plans for you. And it takes faith to trust God's plans for your life. Amen. When everything you see, it looks like it's getting worse. Yeah. When it looks like you have lost all control. Everything is going against you. All your plans are going awry. But God says, I know my plans that I have for you. Now notice he says, I know. He didn't say, I'm telling you, or that you know. He said, but I know. There's some times that we have to trust God's plans for us, but we don't know his plans for us. When the strategy seems to be contrary to the things that we want, we say, Lord, I trust you. Here, see, faith believes God's plans are better than our plans. And that is the wonder of faith. When you have faith in God and you realize that your plans are not going to be realized. Right. That your actions and every effort that you make, it doesn't seem to be able to rescue your plans. You're not able to see your spouse saved like you want to see your spouse saved. You're not able to stay on that job when the boss is giving you a pink slip. You're not able to get up and move around freely when the doctor has already diagnosed you with something that is going to be crippling in your life. You're unable to resolve the conflict between you and your child. Do you have the faith to trust God? To believe that his plan is better than your plans? It's not always easy. It's not always the comfortable thing to accept that God knows better than I do. Faith rests in the plans of God when facing difficult problems. And that, you're saying at that point, okay, Lord, I'm trusting you. That's real faith. That's not imaginary faith. That's faith that says, Lord, I cannot figure this out. I don't know why it's happening. And Lord, it doesn't make sense to me. But faith, that's real faith that trusts in God, says, I know, God, that your plan is going to be the best plan for me despite the problems I'm experiencing right now. Despite it appears that my hopes and my dreams are slipping out of my hands, I know your plans for me are better. And that's a hard thing to swallow. And I know you're saying that. It's hard. It's difficult when you have in your mind already strategized and schemed and you already have in place in your mind and your thoughts how to work things out in the best way, in the best manner for things to come to a resolution, and you don't see it happening. To rest that everything is in God's control. That's faith. That's real faith. That's the faith that pleases God. And that's the faith that trusts the promises of God when it seems like they're not going to happen. Faith is firmly committed to God's plan when other options seem better. And here is a very important point that we need to address. That there will be options. There will be alternatives. There will be other strategies and schemes that you can implement to arrive at the choice or the destination or the resolution of situations that you want. It's possible. There's more than one way to get to your destination. But when you are firmly solidified and founded in faith in God, you take God's way.
Thank you.
And I mean, the other way may seem faster. The other way may seem more easy. The other way may seem better and quicker. The other way seem more logical. And sometimes God's way is the roughest way. God's way is the longest way. God's way is the most difficult way. But if it's God's way, there's a reason. Faith is firmly committed to God's plan when other options seem better. You better follow God's plan. You better follow God's way. Because there's something that God, when God looks at you saying no, when there is other ways to do something, he said, no, I can't take that way because it just is not comfortable for me. We got to believe in God's way. We got to hold on to God's way. The enemy trying to seduce us. As a matter of fact, there was a situation that Jesus was confronted with, where he was there in the wilderness and Satan was testing him. Satan said to him, listen, he took him to this pinnacle and he showed him all the kingdoms of the earth. He said, listen, I will give you all the kingdoms of the earth because it's mine to give you if you will bow down and worship me. I mean, could you imagine such an offer? Such an invitation to have access and to be in charge of every kingdom of the world? Because remember, Satan is the prince and the power of the air. Satan is the God of this world. Right. We better understand that. And so now he makes an invitation to Jesus. Listen, if you're going to join forces with me, if you move away from the plan that God has, he said, I will allow you to rule all the kingdoms of the earth. Jesus said, that sounds interesting, but no, I can't do that. Because God has a way that he wants me to follow. Then, once again, Jesus was there in the Garden of Gethsemane on the night that he was going to be arrested. On the night that he'll be betrayed by Judas. On the night that he'll be denied by Peter. On the last night he will spend with his disciples, the apostles that had been with him for 3.5 years. On that night, when he knows that this is the final night for him to be on earth, and he was facing now being turned over into the hands of the Romans. He goes to the garden and he prays. And he prays this prayer: Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. So this is to let us know that we may have the same dilemma, the same conflict that's going on within us. Where God's way, we may know God's way, but then we see there is an option, there's a way out, there's a way around it. There's a quicker, easier, more comfortable way of taking it, but we realize God's way requires a great sacrifice. Jesus experienced it. And he prayed 3 times. Lord, if it's possible, if there's another way, I don't want to take this route. I don't want to follow through with this plan. I don't want to experience what's coming ahead. But then after the 3rd time of praying, he acquiesced and said, nevertheless, not my will. Let your will be done. Can you say that? Can you say that when you are presented with the easy way out of your problem? Can you say, Lord, not my will, but your will, when there is a quick solution to the dilemma you're facing? If there is a way that would allow you to avoid the problems that you see by taking God's way, that'll be less painful. When you decide to say, Lord, I'm going to take your way, that's real faith. That's not imaginary faith.
Amen. Say it again, Jesus. There's power in the name of